This is part 2 to the Yu Yu Hakusho franchise, game franchise conversation. Last time, in part 1, we discussed Yu Yu Hakusho Dark Tournament for the PlayStation 2, a game developed by Digital Fiction and published by Atari. It was released in North America 2004 and in Europe 2005. If you haven't watched it, I advise you to watch it now, as this is a sequel to that video. However, if you don't want to, that is completely understandable, as today we'll be talking about the Battle of Yu Yu Hakusho 120%. You see, there's only 3 Yu Yu Hakusho games that have ever been on the PlayStation 2. Besides Dark Tournament, Yu Yu Hakusho Forever, a game we'll be talking about a little later on Showdown Zone Aftermath. It's time to dive deep into the last Yu Yu Hakusho console game, potentially answering why it's the last, because afterwards, the franchise itself laid to rest within the Shonen Jump vault. Produced by Band Presto and developed by Dimps. Hold on, wait a minute, wait a second, let me get this straight. You're telling me that years ago, Dimps, a company responsible for the iconic and nostalgic Dragon Ball Z Budokai series, a very important play and role in the resurrection of the Dragon Ball franchise, and responsible for the resurrection of Street Fighter in 2008 Street Fighter 4, made a Yu Yu Hakusho fighting game. And not only that, the questions keep on coming. Band Presto, hold on, don't I see that name and logo on one of my straight from Japan anime figures? Well, yes, you're right. Keep this information, as this is important to figuring out a couple of questions about this game. And I'll keep this as simple as possible. You see, Band Presto was actually Bandai's arcade games division, and when Bandai forged with Namco to form Namco Bandai, or Bandai Namco now, it had other plans for the Band Presto brand, and actually formed its games division with Namco Bandai's games division in 2007. 2007, keep that in mind. And then the year afterwards, or a few months afterwards, it was then redirected to doing toys for Japan. Now, you may have seen the Band Presto name on a few games, but best believe, factually, they stopped making games in 2007. And when you take a look at the Battle of Yu Yu Hakusho, what year did that come out? Band Presto, 2007. Not only is the Battle of Yu Yu Hakusho 120% the last Band Presto made game, potentially it was potentially the last arcade game. And speaking of, since the 120% signifies that this is the upgraded version for one of their arcade games, I think it's important to note that there has to be footage of the arcade games. So let's go ahead and take a look at that footage before we get in and see the footage. So let's take a look at it. Oh wow, it's already different. Oh wow, look at that. it doesn't exist. It seems to me that footage really, of the original arcade release of this game is lost to time. And we're going to have to actually judge this game based off the 120% version of it. So without further ado, let's begin. Now the main menu starts off with Koenma and a few modes to boot. And if you can't understand it, I'll be translating that for you and now. Take a look. Peep this. Battle mode, story mode, versus mode, survival mode, training mode, special mode, and options mode, which is just options. I'll be soft translating little things here and there throughout the video, just to get you guys to understand, and maybe if you want to play this game, you could refer to this video if you will. Though I recommend a little muscle memory if you catch my drift when going through if you don't know how to understand Japanese. We're going to start off with battle mode. Now, like I said before, there is no footage of the original arcade mode. However, this game offers you something in battle mode, which is the game's arcade mode, that gives you a taste of what the original arcade version would be like. Let's go ahead and click on that main menu and figure it out. So what you have here is the 120% arcade mode and the regular arcade mode. Taking a look at the 120% mode, we get a look at the roster. And as you can see, we have a total of 15 playable characters from the jump. And I mean from the jump, as we see 4 black slots. Now those 4 black slots are to be unlocked throughout the game. And we will be showcasing these characters as we go through the review. So keep an eye on that. Other than that, you could say that this is a very small roster. It might be fitting though as we go through the game. And also to note, those unlockable characters was only for the 120% mode of arcade mode. Now they are playable in versus too, but when you go to the original arcade mode, those characters will not be selected as they were added to the 120% mode. So let's go ahead and click on Yusuke and venture through the gameplay of 120%. Yu Yu Hakusho 120%. And as we face our first opponent, Shishi Wakamaru, a character that always reminded me of Rurouni Kenshin until I realized Yu Yu Hakusho preceded Rurouni Kenshin. Oh my. Anyway, first impressions of it is if you might get the Tekken vibe. You might get the Tekken vibe as it is a 3D fighting game feel. It has a guard, it has a kick, it has a punch. In fact, it has a guard, it has a punch, it has a kick. What does that remind you of? It seems like the developer of Dimps were a big fan of the fighting game Virtual Fighter. This game takes a lot from Virtual Fighter actually in terms of its controls, however is placed a bit differently than Virtual Fighter. However, it does feel like it, but a more animated version. Taking a look at the Virtual Fighter controls scheme, it has 3 buttons and a joystick. And I present to you something very similar. In fact, I created for you, the viewers, the official SHINTONE Yu Yu Hakusho 120% arcade layout. So taking a look, square on the PlayStation controls is punch, triangle is kick, and guard is X. Of course, there's the options menu. As you may remember, you can actually replace the button layouts to your own liking in the options menu, so that's always an option for you, and that's always good in fighting games in general. Now I want you to keep this in mind as I will keep the arcade stick, and we will go back to this a little later in the video to explain the deeper into the system. For right now, we're looking at the surface level for you surface motherfuckers. Anyway, you got the punch, you got the kick, and as you take a look at the controls, and this is very reminiscent of Virtual Fighter indeed. There is no doubt about it that Dimps used Virtual Fighter as a blueprint for Yu Yu Hakusho, but it's much faster paced. It is definitely much more animated, and for the graphics at the time, taking a look at it, it actually looks pretty good. Now this is on emulator, and it runs fantastic on it, by the way. So I thought I'd keep that in note. And as you go through the battle, now I did note before in the translation of the menu that you face 8 characters before you face Toguro. And each of the characters you go through a different stage throughout the Yu Yu Hakusho story. Up until the end of the Dark Tournament saga. But there is one more stage afterwards that is available that we will showcase a little later. Anyway, this mode is the perfect mode to start with. Now you have the option of starting with training mode, that's cool, but to get a good grasp of the game, I do suggest everybody who tries this game out to go to battle mode. You may lose some, you may win some, but you'll definitely be learning a lesson when you face Toguro. At the end of the original arcade version or the 120% version, you get the option to select a Toguro power level. And of course, there's the 100% version. Oh my god. Anyway, I'll tell you what I went through. I didn't know what this was at first, so I was like either a random or 100%. I was like, you know what? The last game I played, the last Dark Tournament game, didn't even bother having an 100% Toguro. So I ended up picking that. For better or for worse. Now, Toguro has been presented so far in Yu Yu Hakusho games as a perfect boss character. So it'll be interesting to see my first impressions of what he'll be doing in
You what?
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck is going on right now. Even off to a great start. This is my first time facing Toguro. You'll get the wake-up call of a lifetime. Especially if you choose 100% Toguro, which I suggest nobody to do, because that's what I did. And holy moly, even just analyzing it from the fighting game mind, some things just don't make any sense. Now, this is when I first got introduced to certain moves that actually not only take away your health, finding out there's no red health, but also taking away your full bar in general. What a punishment. What the heck is going on? But surely that's just a few moves, and has nothing to do with how difficult this motherfucker is. Nope, you're wrong. This guy is a boss character. This is no joke. Not only do you have to defeat him one time to beat arcade mode, you have to defeat this guy 3 times. So this is something that I do not expect anybody to beat, and no, I do not expect anybody to truly pass. So we're gonna have to skip Toguro for the meantime. There's no cheat code, there's no nothing. We're gonna at some point have to face Toguro on our own. This guy is no joke, but I have not truly faced the terror of Toguro just yet. After testing your skills in battle mode, which I believe nobody will beat on the first time, it's time to go to story mode. Something I highly suggest you do if you're going to play this game right after battle mode. Now, story mode offers 2 options, new story or story chapters. Now, obviously, you're going to have to do new story to access the chapters once again, but I think that's a nice feature if you're interested in it. And speaking of, in the story, if you're unfamiliar with Yu Yu Hakusho or just you watched it and you want to play this game, you're not familiar with the overall story of Yu Yu Hakusho, this game does give you a incredibly decent recap of the Yu Yu Hakusho story, going as far back as with your first fight with Goki, when you first meet up with Hiei and Kurama when they stole the artifacts. In fact, you get to face Hiei right after Goki, an unexpected villain. Even if you face Randall in a little small tournament with Genkai, even one of the 4 beasts, Suzaku. And as the game continues on, the story mode, you'll find yourself immediately battling against the Dark Tournament fighters. Now you do not face all of them, but you do face the key players here. One of the things you will notice is some costumes are pretty inaccurate, as you'll be facing characters like Goki and Randall, not in the same costumes as you faced with what they originally faced them as in the anime or the manga. Though it's not truly confirmed at this point, or we'll talk about this a little later, it does imply that there is no alternate costumes to unlock once you complete the story. But we'll be talking about that a little later. as you continue to the story, you'll face some special conditions like actually facing a little monsters here and there as Genkai, and even running into a special point in the story where you face Genkai as Toguro. Now they could have easily placed this as a cutscene, but for some reason you can actually play this out. You're not supposed to win this battle, so I'll be interested to see if you guys, any of you guys, can actually beat this battle and see if you win anything. Like I said before, you can actually revisit the chapter once you complete the story or complete the chapter. Now, of course, as we head over to the final fights against Byoi, younger Toguro, and Toguro himself, and even Karasu, the difficulty is not that crazy, except for Byu. For some reason, he kicked my fucking ass with the EA. But the point is, we finally get to Toguro. At first, you face Toguro with his 80% mode. This is very accurate to the story of the Dark Tournament, where Toguro supposedly starts with 80%, which you know that's a fucking lie. But the game has a habit of shortening events, and that is also shortened. It's just 80%, with a transform accessible 100%. Something that can be unlocked a little later, and we'll talk about that a little later. This battle as a difficulty is one you'll definitely have some trouble with. He is beatable, as you can see. I had some trouble with him, but the entire battle, I mean, you'll have with this percentage of Toguro, just a reminder of how well they implemented him as a boss character and how much they respected him. I mean, holy crap, look at that fucking move. Look how much damage that did. Yes, I know, game. I know. I'm facing younger Toguro. I get it. But you will beat him just like I and inevitably face 120. Holy shit. Yes. And if you haven't found this out on your arcade playthrough, you will figure out in story mode and inevitably face 100% Toguro with the option of transforming to 120%. Do you know how many times I've lost him? Do you know how many times, how many hours it took to beat this mother effer? Do you? Do you? After many hours, I finally beat that mofo Toguro. As much as I respect the game's developer for developing him very accurately, he was an incredible challenge and something that I know will make people rage quit like a motherfucker. Even my strategy wasn't solid. It was pure luck that he wasn't doing his bullshit and half the shit he'd done to KO my ass and perfect me many times. But as the credits roll, I noticed that the game had yet to be truly mastered, and it's time from this point on to master the game.
全ての人に墓を掘る。俺たち7人で穴を掘る。
Game over!
After that climatic cliffhanger, you might assume we have a few more chapters left in story mode, possibly to face the character we just saw, Sensui Shinobu, from the chapter Black Saga, the saga after the Dark Tournament, when in fact, the answer is much simpler. We actually just unlocked him, along with beneath him, Toya, one of the fighters you face in story mode, along with Isuki, another character from the chapter Black Saga, and beneath him, Suzaku, one of the characters we face, who's one of the 4 beasts. Now that's very interesting. It feels good to unlock all the characters, right? Well, after the story mode is finished, you get another notification that you've unlocked Pooh versions of Kuwabara, Hiei, and Kurama. By highlighting them with R1, you get to select these Pooh versions of the characters along with Pooh himself when you highlight Yusuke with R1. Now, as far as they go when it comes to competitively viable, not really. I'd be incredibly impressed with anybody that beats anybody with these Pooh versions of the characters. They're a nice addition, but there's even more characters to be played when you highlight R1 over the random. You get access to Randall, Goki, and the demons you faced with as Genkai in the story mode. It's a nice addition. The demons may be particularly weak, but it's nice to play as these characters. The game shows you that every character you face through the story will be playable in some manner. Unlike certain games from the future, Mortal Kombat, cough cough, Street Fighter, cough cough. Anyway, well, more so Mortal Kombat. I'm throwing shade at. Anyway, there's actually a surefire way for you to actually see every character you unlocked. Head over to special mode, go into character gallery, and you get to see every model of every character you unlocked. But there's a certain thing that bothers me, and before we get deeper into the models, it's a bit of speculation on my part, but I think it's fun speculation. There's actually 2 more open spaces here, and I wondered if there were super secret characters in this game, or maybe the devs did not have enough time to put 2 more characters in the game that were unlockable, and it could be one of the 3 kings from the 3 King Saga, the saga right after the chapter Black Saga, or maybe some more chapter Black characters that they could have added. I most definitely think it could have been one of the 3 kings, maybe 2 of them being Yomi and Ryzen being the most prominent characters from that saga to put inside a fighting game. But that's all speculation. Maybe one of y'all can, wink wink, look into the game to figure out, wink wink. all worth exploring in Showdown Aftermath. There's also something I have to note about the Togoros. Toguro 80% and 100% are playable, oh boy, but they can only be unlocked by beating each of them in the arcade mode and battle mode that we previously stated. And as you may assume, yes, I've beaten them in battle mode. I've beaten Toguro 100% 3 times in a row, and I've beaten Toguro 80%. How I beat them? No cheat code. I'll show you guys a little later into the video as we talk about the character I beat him with. Anyway, continue on with the character gallery. It's actually some mode that I always appreciate and you actually get to view the transformation and the animation of the character you choose, and it's very great just to have a deeper look into the game in its art style, and it really shows you the care and detail and the art style importance the developers had in mind for this game. I mean, even viewing 120% the monstrosity that it is in this mode is pretty awesome, I will admit. But since Character Gallery is in special mode, there's 2 more options in special mode we need to talk about just to get it out the way, because this is a full review of the game. That is Movie Gallery. Now, throughout story mode, arcade mode, you play as each and every character. You get to unlock special little movies and scenes from them in this mode. Now, it's not the craziest thing in the world, but it's actually, it's an unlockable, and it's better than any fucking stupid ass token game. You know what I'm saying? From the last game. As you can see, I haven't really unlocked all of them because I haven't played every character in arcade mode. But once you do, you do, which is interesting. That the fact that there's still more unlockables. Now, there's another thing that you can unlock through playing through story mode or arcade mode is a now loading editor. Now, this is some special thing that I definitely didn't expect. But when you play with each character, you get to unlock a special loading screen for each and every one of them. Sometimes you get to unlock a new loading screen for Yusuke when you play as him, Toguro when you play as him, Suzaku, as you can see right here, and a special scene from the anime. Nothing from the manga, which I think is a missed opportunity. Of course they had to include that face. Remember, this is in 2007, before the meme shit started to take high gear. And with that being said, all of this special mode is taken care of. There's one more mode we have to talk about besides training mode, which we will cover the fighters. It's survival. Now, survival mode is another potential highlight for this game for you. It is not one for me particularly, but it's definitely one to challenge you. We got All-Star Survival, Younger Toguro Survive 1, Younger Toguro Survive 2, and Knife Edge Deathmatch. Now, all of these are interesting, but it doesn't make or break the game. It just expands upon it. Without further ado, let's go ahead and let's start off with Younger Toguro Survive 2. Now, I'm going ahead and I'm showing you footage of me picking Suzaku. In Survive 2, you have to face 100% Toguro and beat him with one character. Now, you know how this character is by now, and that sucks. But here's the thing. Once you will inevitably get your ass kicked by Younger Toguro, you go back to the menu, and you can't choose the same character you choose, in this case, Suzaku, again. And you have to beat him with one of the characters. The goal is to beat his ass with one character. Eventually, I got close. I did beat him with Sensui, surprisingly enough. Now, that was 70% here is actually a scene footage from Survive 1, where you have to face Toguro from 10% to 80%. So Survive 1 is facing Toguro 8 times until you get to 10%, until you get to 80%, and to Survive 2 is facing him 100%. You gotta beat him with one character. Interesting survival stuff, but not too deep. But here is a very interesting mode. It's actually reminiscent and takes from Chu and Yusuke's match called the Knife Edge Deathmatch. Now, that's what I dubbed it here for your understanding, but it's not actually really called that or translated that completely. But you get what I'm trying to say here. Blah, blah, blah. Very similar to the actual match they had. There's a very limited amount of space. And instead of 2 knives, there's a multiple knives. And it's actually just a smaller ring area than the regular stage ring size. And you have to fight against a character. This actually does favor the shorter characters a tad bit more. Or maybe that's what I got from my impressions of it. Now, that's just about it when it comes to survival. Of course, there's All-Star Survival, which is the most challenging one, which you have recurring health, blah, blah, blah. You know how survival is. And that's pretty much it when it comes to that. And very quick, before we go talk about training mode, I'd like to tell you guys how to access the player 2 color and for each character. Now hover over your character, press start button on the PlayStation controls, and then press confirm. And once you do that, you should be able to access the second player color, as you see with Kurama and Yusuke. And it's a shame. It is definitely a shame that there were no alternate costumes for this game, which might lead it down the tier list a little bit. I will not lie, but we'll get there when we get there. For now, it is time to talk about the training mode, the key part about this game, for many reasons. Because it's very obvious that the devs wanted you to play this game competitively. So without further ado, let's head over to training. One of the coolest things about training mode is actually the stage. As we bring up back the arcade stick, let's talk about what the stage references to. Now, I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but let's go ahead and explain it now. The training mode stage is actually a reference, and actually a very cool reference, to the Chapter Black Saga stage, or the monster Yuri Otoko. I hope I said that correctly. A monster controlled by Itsuki, who is playable in this game. It's actually the bowels of a demon. So that's actually, honestly, probably will put this stage in one of the coolest fighting game stages ever made. I'm sure top 100 for guaranteed. The fact that this is the bowels of a demon, even if you didn't know that on its own, it still makes it a very cool visual fucking stage, and a really unusual training stage. It really just shows you how powerful a Yu Yu Hakusho fighting game could really be. Anyway, going into training mode, back into it, seeing what it offers you as the player. We got the history, which is very important when it comes to practicing moves. Frame, this is 2007 by the way. Frame, damage, combo damage, hit frame, freeze, attack type, combo. These are all not essential in learning your character. Dimps wanting you to learn your shit for sure. And even just talking about it, and also looking at how good Yusuke is as a starter character as well. This should convince you of that for sure. He is definitely the Ryu of the game, as he should be. He is the main character. Usually, main characters of anime has to be the most balanced character of the anime fighter. It just has to be that way. You don't want your main character of your anime kind of playing like shit in your fighting game that's surrounded by him, in a sense. You really don't want that as much. I'm sure he'll be near the tier list as we talk about it. But when far as training mode is concerned, it's the mode to go to for sure to be better at the game. I know I said earlier in the video that battle mode, I want you to go there first, but I usually go to training mode first. And like I said, if you want to go to training mode, it's definitely something you could do, and this is your option. This is here where I learned how to do super moves that I did not use that would have been useful. That would have definitely been useful for Toguro. But it's not as broken. It's actually a very comebacky type of thing. It's the closest thing to a comeback you can make, but it's also very risky in a sense. It also depends on what character you choose. It doesn't have the same exact input for every character, which could make it a bit difficult. To be honest, I was kind of playing this on a keyboard a little bit to kind of emulate the arcade feel, so it was a little bit more difficult. I was kind of playing it like a hitbox controller, a hitbox arcade stick, and it was a little bit more difficult for me to actually do the moves. But still, I think as far as controls are concerned, I think an arcade stick and controller is definitely the best way to play this game. Well, that being said, that's arcade mode. But there's a few more things I have to talk about. Actually, how I beat Koro earlier is with Sensui. Now, I want to talk about Sensui and Toguro here. Sensui being the hidden fighter, unlockable character, and how broken he is. There is some cheap shit in the game that definitely won't work against a human, which I'll lead to what I'm trying to build up to right now. That works against a computer, like Sensui's double kick here. This is something I also learned in training mode, which got me to be playing Sensui the way I'm doing it. This is actually how I beat Toguro 80% and 100% and actually unlocked him by doing that cheap ass shit. Now, it doesn't work all the time. And speaking of Toguro, I have to talk about how it is to play as him. He is the boss character, and once again, I am proud of how they handled him. But I have to showcase how broken this motherfucker is as a playable character. I gotta showcase him. Here we go, 120%. Let's hear that damage. And this is just by pressing R2, which is all the punching kicks is. Ready? This is why this character will never be playable in one of our tournaments. That's why. Holy moly, man. Holy moly shit, man. Look at this shit. This is fucking crazy. He's not gonna be playable ever. This is probably one of the most broken bosses of all time. Listen, the computer has done that to me before multiple times during my playthrough. Like I said before, when facing this guy and actually play it, holy shit, oh my god. You gotta be kidding me, dude. It's gonna be like that freaking Rugal meme, man. It's like that freaking Rugal meme. Or they said, what was it called? What's it called? It'll probably pop up on screen too when they had the paper and they told them in Spanish to not play this guy. Yeah, this is exactly. Listen, I'm telling you right now, we're gonna run tournaments in this game. This guy is 100% banned. Look at this shit. Perhibro Hoguar con Yogo Toguro. Definitely. I hope it popped up. And when you really overall look at the characters here, I honestly, after playing Toguro, the only playable character that's fair to versus, he's just normal Toguro. Every other character, especially 100% Toguro, it's too broken for tournaments, man. Too broken for tournaments. Ban that motherfucker. He is way too broken. And in fact, I keep talking about it while I was building up to this. We were actually going to continue on talking about these characters and actually exploring them in my series Phyton Underground. This is an official announcement right here. I probably started the video and told you guys to come check out the review before we actually go ahead and explore the game. So if I did, here's why. But I'm also telling you guys to go back to that Phyton Underground series where we're actually going to continue playing this game. So if you want more deep look at the characters in the game, I usually handle them inside a review. But after how much deep knowledge that has to be talked about, we have to kind of push it to. And since we're going to be running tournaments on this, we're going to be pushing it to Phyton Underground, where we also showcase the tournaments of the games. But it's time. It's time for the final thoughts tier list. It's time to place the ranking of Yu Yu Hakusho, the Dark Tournament, 120%. That's actually the full name of it in English. I don't know. I forgot to mention that. So I usually shorten it by naming it 120%. So, without further ado, let's go down to the final grade and just grade this shit. But before we do that, I have to explain the ranking system as I do with every Showdown Zone Revengeance. Z rank. There is abundance of content that adds to the strong foundation, cream of the crop, greatest of all time. S rank, the certified classic. Purposeful decisions hinder the game's true power. It is a contender for GOAT though. It is a contender for GOAT. And now moving on to A rank, the love letter rank. Much more improvements need to be made on a foundational level. Lacking gameplay prowess is made up with effective use of source material. Very interesting indeed. Could it be this? Who knows? Moving on down, it gets worse and worse. To B rank, untapped potential. Source material drives front and center of these games. There's voids of emptiness and it leaves you wanting more and questioning why this and there and why blah blah blah. It's solid enough for another playthrough or a session, but it's full of missed opportunity, but it still has a lot of potential. Service level, the C rank. Product for the consumer, bare minimum in its full form. Disappointment. Do I need to explain this shit? Either crafted by amateurs or a cheap team. It's nothing more than a job. And shit. How can you explain shit? Shit? No shit? No redemption. An absolute fucking failure. A woat. It's a woat. Now, let's go ahead and start off, and this might be a spoiler if you didn't watch the last. Remember, this is part 2 to Yu Hakusho conversation. This might be a little spoiler, but we're gonna actually go ahead and I'm going ahead of myself. We're actually gonna go ahead and start off with the ranking of the characters. Now, I have played every single character, and how I'm showing you my take on who's the cheapest and shittiest in the game. 100% Toguro is the absolute cheapest. He is Z tier, one of the only and first, I'm sure, absolute broken anime characters we'll be talking about in anime fighters. Now, the next best ones are Chu, Jin, Byui, and of course the rest of the Toguros and Sensui. These characters have everything they need to win and damage. Now, I didn't show Byui here, and one interesting thing to note is his size. Now, he's a little bit shorter than usual. However, this is actually his accurate size from the manga, even though in the anime they kind of exaggerated it a little bit. So this is actually his proper size, and if he's anything bigger than this, it's not his proper size. Very strange enough. He's kind of been inconsistent like that. Anyway, Yusuke is an A tier. Kurama, OG, which is actually Suzuki the Clown in disguise. Older Toguro, regular Toguro. Suzaku, I knew he was going to be high tier. Izuki is also high tier too because of his special. We'll be exploring that in Fighting Facts. B tier, Kuwabara, Koenma. I don't know what's going on with that character. He's C tier. He's very average. I'm sure if you try very hard, you can win with him. And D tier, the shit. I mean, those little ogres, man. If you play through the story mode, you know how it is to face these guys. They're just complete shit. As far as the poos, you're not supposed to take them seriously. Now we go on to the slight spoiler that I was alluding to a little bit a few minutes ago. Where we actually last video, I've actually placed Yu Hakusho Dark Tournament as a C rank game. It was a service level game. It was rushed out. It was for the consumer, bare product. That's what was pushed forward to capitalize on the renaissance of Yu Hakusho for Western audiences. But does the same apply for 100%, 120% Yu Hakusho the Dark Tournament? Does the same apply? Now, I'm highlighting right now, it's definitely not Z and it's definitely not S. It can't be any of those. However, A, B, C, D, it could be one of them. It could be one of them. Let's start. Okay, let's put it in B. Let's go ahead and put that. Let's put the game in B. See if it is right there. It does have lots of untapped potential. You know what? Let's put it in A. Let's put it in A. Let's put it in A. Does it belong in A? Dude, the source material is definitely on point. And that the stages, they didn't in certain characters like Suzaku and Goki. And even the chapter black characters, they didn't need to include them. They didn't include them at all. So what is the final decision? Well, it's either A or B. It's either A or B. I'm coming to a decision. I'm really cracking down what we have here. I said more positive things than negative. Dude, I think the breaker might be Toguro. He's hard as shit. One of the hardest bosses ever faced in the fighting game. But how they handled him here and treated him with respect, that's admirable. And I think we have our final score for the game, which I'm going to reveal soon. Drum roll. I'm giving Yu Hakusho, the Dark Tournament, the Battle of Yu Hakusho, the Dark Tournament, 120% in A rank. This game is a love letter to the fans, and it's a shame that it's the last Yu Yu Hakusho game. Why is that the case? Well, like I said before, way early in the video, after this, the Yu Yu Hakusho game franchise, the franchise period went into sleep. Shonen Jump didn't have much use for it anymore, and after that, it just slept. And if they would have continued, if they would have actually released this game to the West, I think it would have definitely picked up the fighting game scene and the scene in general. I honestly do believe that, but because of the situation that happened with the merger between Ban and Presto, I think that has a lot to do with why this wasn't released in the United States or anywhere else in Europe, and why it stayed in Japan. And I think because of that, it effectively killed Yu Yu Hakusho franchise as a game franchise. That's what I'm just saying. And I think that's our answer, and that's a speculation. I think it's worth more exploring in Showdown Aftermath on my SHINTONE Extras channel when that eventually comes out, when we talk a little bit more. But other than that, A rank, it deserves it. I highly recommend you guys check out this game. It's a love letter to fans. I'm not sure it's gonna be the only. I know it's not gonna be the only A rank anime game out there, but it's definitely one to admire. My name is SHINTONE. Check out other Showdown Zone REVENGENCE reviews. We got tons more to do, and I have tons to I have tons for you to check out. So, till the next confirmation, my name is SHINTONE. I'll be seeing ya. Peace.
Don't you want a rematch?